I told my mom and dad that because they voted for someone who wants me dead, that they no longer have the privilege of having their daughter and their granddaughters in their life. And I told them, never contact me again.
Oh.
I'm never calling you. I want nothing to do with you. And take me out of the will.
Oh.
I have a younger brother who is also a MAGA. I said, when you guys pass away, give him the entire house. I don't want to inherit your house. I don't want anything from you. I don't want to hear from you ever again.
I grew up with racist parents just like this. Watch.
If you're a Christian white parent who loves the Lord and loves your children, it is actually a failure of your parental duty. If you teach your children growing up, if you lie to them and say all people and all races of people in our country are the same, they are not. You are actually depriving your child of factual, truthful information that could save their life.
Hello, racism. I grew up just like this, being afraid of black people because this is what I heard in my household, okay? And the worst thing about this is, as growing up, it didn't sound awful. It sounded, oh, well, that's realistic. That's common sense. What I was taught growing up is that stereotypes are just the truth. But stereotypes aren't the truth. They're generalizations. The moment you assume someone's character because of their race, we've stopped seeing people as individuals. And the craziest thing is that this is happening in Christian, God-loving, God-fearing households. That is not Christ-like, and Jesus is not segregating people based on their color, who they are, and what they represent. Christians, do better.
Welcome back to my channel. My name is Liam. Listen, I need you to sit down for this one. What you are about to see is not just another family drama compilation. This is a cultural earthquake. White people, the same demographic that has held power, privilege, and the narrative for centuries, are finally looking at their own parents, aunts, uncles, and grandparents and saying, I choose humanity over blood. They are cutting off MAGA relatives. They are refusing inheritance. They are telling racist family members that their grandchildren will never know them. And they are doing it because they finally understand something black people have been screaming for generations, that racism is not a difference of opinion. It is violence. It is a death wish aimed at us. For so long we were told to keep the family together, to respect your elders, to agree to disagree. But these young white people are rejecting that lie. They are choosing black lives, queer lives, immigrant lives, and truth over Thanksgiving dinners with people who vote for the erasure of those lives. This is bigger than politics. This is a moral awakening, and I need you to watch these clips carefully. Because what you are witnessing is the beginning of something the right wing is terrified of. White people who refuse to be the foot soldiers of white supremacy anymore. Let's get into it.
So my MAGA aunt died a week and a half ago, and I haven't talked to her since like 2016, 2017, cut her out. And I've always wondered, because it wasn't just her, it was other family members too that I cut out. How would I feel when they pass? Like, would I regret the time that I missed with them? And I kind of thought that I would. And instead, what I regret the most is that she was not a good person. That she was my aunt and my godmother, and she was not a good person. And every time somebody posts on Facebook or wherever, and they're like, oh, she was amazing, she was so kind. Yeah, she probably was. To white people. Or she really loved her family. She made this incredible family. Yeah. Because as far as we know, nobody in her family is gay or lesbian or, well, there's no people of color in the family either. So, I mean, I'm not going to say those things. People have a right to grieve. But it's interesting to me and kind of sad that my biggest regret is that she doesn't have time now to become a better person. And the funny thing is that she didn't care. She didn't want to become a better person. She thought she was perfectly fine as she was, being completely racist and homophobic. So, I mean, that answers that question.
If your adult child no longer speaks to you, if they've cut contact with you, you are the problem. Period. But what if no, it's you. You're the problem. There is no person who wants to not speak to their parents, who wants to not have any kind of relationship with their parents. Everyone does. If they are choosing to not, you have done something. Or more likely, you continue to do something. They are not selfish. They are not crazy. You are the problem. You are. And until you can come to terms with that fact, the loss of that connection is fully on you. You don't deserve to get it back. I don't care how much you have convinced yourself that they have done something. They just hate you for no reason. It's always you. It is. You have brought them to that place. You did it. Anyway, that's all. Anyway, I'm eating some vegan pesto garlic knots. They slap. I want this video to be long enough for me to get paid for it. Like, full transparency. You know, compensation for my suffering.
I can remember though where it did turn ugly. It was one night we lived in Houston and you had come home from California and I hear you and Dad arguing out in the TV room. I opened the door because I'd gone to bed.
Yeah. This was during Obama?
Yes. I go,
I think I remember this exact night.
what the hell is happening here? And you guys were exploding on each other over politics. And so you kind of calmed down. I went back to bed. And at that exact moment in time, I knew we were on opposite sides in politics.
At that moment, you know when I knew it was, I don't know where you were living, but it was when the Trump Access Hollywood tape came out. And I was like, you're not going to vote for this guy, are you? And you're like, yes, I am. That's just locker room talk. And I was like, oh shit, they done got her.
So my dad came over this weekend and he's a big MAGA supporter. I mean, this guy fucking loves Donald Trump. And for like 6 hours, we fucking battled it out, dude. We were screaming at each other, arguing. My wife had to go hide in the bedroom. But it's important to me because my dad's fucking brainwashed, right? And every point that he brought up, I would bring up a credible source to debunk that claim. And one of the things that got him was that he said Donald Trump wasn't responsible for January 6th, and he said the election wasn't stolen. He's not the one saying that. It's liberals saying that. And I go, so Donald Trump isn't saying over and over again that the election's stolen? And he's like, no. And I go, so you haven't seen him on Fox News saying over and fucking over again that the election was stolen? And he thought about it, and I brought up 10 different videos showing him every time he said that. And again, I ask him, so you don't think Donald Trump is the one saying the election's stolen? And he goes, no. And I go, dude, you're fucking brainwashed, bro. People who are brainwashed don't know that they're brainwashed. And I think that kind of clicked for him. And I'm like, Dad, I'm showing you evidence and you're still believing one thing. That's literally George Orwell's doublethink in 1984. And finally he goes, I might be brainwashed. And I go, yeah. The only way to combat being brainwashed is to admit that you might be brainwashed. CFH, I might be brainwashed, and you know what? I know what I'm brainwashed about. So that was a huge deal for him. And then he texted me a few hours later, and he said, I really am trying to figure out what's going on. I think I might be brainwashed. So he's slowly realizing that he's been manipulated for the past 4 years. And I'm really proud of him. My dad's a smart guy. My point is, I think the fever's breaking. I'm not going to say keep having these conversations with your family, but in my case, I really care about my dad and what he thinks, and I don't like to think of him being brainwashed. That really bothers me. So the fever's breaking. I mean, I'm seeing it in my own family.
Okay, so my mom voted for Trump, and for the second time. And I just know that there's other people out there that probably are in a similar situation and struggling to understand why somebody would vote that way. And her biggest excuse and reasoning is for the economy, all that. Like, he's gonna make everything better. He's gonna save us money. But what I don't understand is why do they support this pathway to saving the country money? Why do they support cutting all this funding for all these vulnerable and populations, minority populations, taking things from people who need them, That is their approach, rather than literally just enforcing the IRS, or the IRS enforcing the freaking tax laws and making these billionaires pay their share. Literally, if they would pay their share, that's it. We'd be good. That's all we need. It's such an easy solution, and I just don't understand why my mom, having a daughter, me, who is somebody who has struggled through life with, a single mom, definitely dependent on food stamps, Medicaid. I'm autistic. I have mental health struggles. It's just so hard for me to understand how my mom can have me for a daughter and then literally go to the polls and vote against everything that would help me. You know what I mean? So yeah, just help me out. Who else is out there? I need to hear from you. Like, how are you coping? Because I'm honestly really struggling with this. Really, really struggling.
As a queer, liberal, adult child of a MAGA family, I need to remind y'all that there are millions of kids trapped in their small, conservative, rural towns that belong to MAGA families, that have MAGA parents, that are not MAGA, that have been marginalized, ignored, and harassed by the people that they love most their entire lives, including their teachers, including their friends, including their pastors, including their family members. Nothing about the way that those people voted says that that child deserves to be harassed or deserves to suffer. That child also does not deserve to be labeled as a MAGA because they have MAGA parents. Does that make sense? Those children are prisoners of a life that was not their making. They are waiting until the day they turn 18 to escape. I just think it's sad that the people on the left side of the political spectrum that are supposedly supposed to be their allies are just participating in marginalizing those children. Queer people live in the South, y'all. Queer kids have MAGA parents. It's so much easier to say, apple falls far from the tree, yo. I don't have any energy or time to worry about those kids. Fuck those kids. Their parents voted for it. They deserve it. It's easy to think that when you no longer consider those kids real people. When you paint them all with the same brushstroke and consider them all white, cishet Christian kids that don't need any protections. I think queer kids and special needs kids and other marginalized kids of MAGA parents need our advocacy and our allyship the most. Because if it weren't for us, they would have nobody in their corner. Nobody fucking cares about them. Nobody cares about them at their school, at their house, at their church. Nobody cares about them. Nobody cares about who they really are or what they really need. So if you choose to not care about those kids because their parents voted for Trump and they didn't care about them, so why should I? That's a personal decision you have to live with. But for me, I feel as strongly about advocating for those kids as I do any other child. You're certainly not going to catch me in any comment section calling those kids future MAGA that deserve what's coming to them.
So I am not going home for Christmas this year. In fact, I haven't gone home for Christmas since 2021, actually. Because MAGA isn't just a divide in DC, it is a divide in our families. I'm not going home because I haven't talked to my dad since Roe v. Wade was overturned. That was the point I realized I just couldn't reach him. And I mean, we'd already kind of had a strained relationship growing up, really because we're so similar. Like, we are both stubborn, overly confident, overly passionate kind of assholes. And most importantly, we are both very, very set in our moral beliefs. And there was a point in my early 20s where we'd really gotten to have a good relationship until Trump came along. My dad had voted for Obama twice and then became a diehard MAGA. And we tried for years to navigate that, but at a certain point, the anger and hatred that Trump fuels just burned away any trust or respect we had for each other. And I really haven't talked about this publicly much, because it's not just sad, it kind of makes me feel like a failure. Like, I already constantly have imposter syndrome, and if I can't reach my own dad, am I even making a difference? But then I also realized, out of all of the people following me, some of you guys gotta be in the same boat. And I wouldn't want any of you guys to feel like you're failing. If you slid in my DMs and told me you're alone on Christmas, I'd be telling you to go get yourself a bottle of wine and some candy, throw on some movies, binge some video games, rest up and treat yourself. We've got a fight ahead in 2026. So I guess I'm finally making this video to just say that. And to anyone else who might be alone over the holidays, you know, you're not alone. So I'm gonna take my own advice and drink too much and play video games and gear up for the midterms. Maybe somewhere along the way, I'll get through to someone else's dad, and that would be worth it.
My dad is the crazy raging Trumper of our family, but my mom has been silently participatory in it, and that has been more painful and damaging for me. I haven't talked to either of them since the night before the inauguration. For anyone who didn't watch that previous video all the way through, my dad, who's a World War II history buff, would not admit the Roman salutes were Roman salutes. I told him he needs to really step out of his bubble and take a look at things, and he said, "You think you're better than me? You think you're better than me?" Which, like, I don't know what do you even say to that? Like, that's the way it works. Like, you want your kids to be better than you. So yes, somehow my brother and I ended up the way we are. My mom has always claimed to be apolitical, even though socially she's probably even more bigoted than my dad. My mom didn't need to be indoctrinated by Fox News to become a racist, bigoted, misogynistic pick-me. She just hides it really well, which is why she is more damaging to me than my dad. And this has a huge overlap with the conversation about emotionally immature parents and that sort of thing, because a lot of people will talk about having like overtly abusive, angry, whatever parents. Like, my dad definitely falls into that category, not physically, but definitely emotionally, verbally abusive, for sure, 100%. But the way my mom abuses her kids is by manipulating them. It's by taking on behaviors that make it look like she's a loving parent. But if you do what she perceives as a slight, she will flip out. The night before the inauguration, I told my dad I cannot associate with fascist sympathizers and apologists. And I meant that. I 100% meant that. Like, that's actually, the fact that you cannot see that this is what it is actually makes this decision very easy for me, because you are so far gone that I don't have to question whether not ever talking to you again is the right decision. Sidebar, when I said that I can't associate, he said, "Great, now you made your mother cry, good job. So just so you know what we're dealing with here." 3 days later, like nothing ever happened, my mom texted our group chat with me, my fiance, my dad, my mom, and my brother, and was like, "Hey, we're gonna be in town for whatever doctor appointment. Do you want to all get lunch?" And all I said was, "I do not associate with fascist sympathizers." Which, by the way, was she crying when she heard that the first time, or did she not cry? You're just saying that to make me feel bad, or was she, and now she's just pretending like it never happened? All of these things are like probably the truth. Anyway, because I said that, she like flipped out in this group chat with all of my most loved ones. "All the things we've done for you, this is too far, blah, 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 blah." Mom, you voted for him. You've claimed to be apolitical. You've listened on the phone while I've like basically cried to you that if we ever wanted to have a kid living in South Carolina, like, I could fucking die. And she's like, "Oh, I had never thought about it that way." Like, and you claim to be apolitical, but these things, like, you hear the sadness, the fear in your children, both me and my brother, and it doesn't register to you. It registers when you feel like your kids are being taken away from you, though. And your idea of bringing your kids back into you is to insult me and embarrass me in this group chat. So this overlap of toxic politics and families falling apart, I feel like they were probably toxic even without the political infiltration a lot of times. The things that made the family members toxic are what makes them drawn towards MAGA. It's so much more peaceful not having to deal with any of that.
Are you a kid out there who begged your parents to vote on behalf of their grandchildren and their future, only to see them turn around and vote against them? Then they have the nerve to sit there and tell you that all the things that you're worried about that will happen to their grandchildren aren't going to happen. And all those things that we tell them that are on the verge of being passed, that's not really going to happen. It doesn't matter if I tell them my personal experience. Mom and Dad, your daughter for the last 2 weeks has done nothing but worry about the future of your grandchildren. Your daughter has used every spare minute that she has to make videos advocating on behalf of the vulnerable communities. Your daughter has spent all her free time calling local representatives, calling her federal representatives. Your daughter has spent most of her free time looking up bills that they're trying to pass that would negatively affect your grandchildren, specifically your disabled granddaughter. They don't want to tell you that it's happening, but we know that it is. They want to gaslight you into believing that nothing that you're seeing is going to happen, even when it's happening right in front of our faces. So I'm here to say it's really crappy that your parents did that. It's really crappy that your parents did not advocate for their grandchildren in the way that you are. But I'm proud of you for standing up and breaking that cycle. I'm proud of you for being the parent that thought about your children with their vote. I'm proud of you for being the parent that not only stands up for your kids and fights for your kids, but fights for the future of kids like yours. I'm proud of you. I'm with you. We can't do this alone, and we're probably not going to have our parents with us fighting on our behalf. They've shown us where they stand, so we're going to have to do it together. All of us kids that have felt let down by our parents and unprotected by our parents and their choices, we're just going to do better. We're going to protect our kids and their futures in the way that ours should have been protected. And we're going to do it together. Yeah, it breaks our hearts that it has to be this way. Yeah, it breaks our hearts that our parents couldn't see what they did or what they're doing. But we do. And we're going to do better for our kids. Much better.
So this is for MAGA pro-life mothers. Now that we know that women and teenage girls are losing their lives in emergency rooms because of these healthcare bans that were put into place by Trump and other Republicans, and even if you believe this garbage about it being the doctors and the hospitals who are misinterpreting the law, what do you think is going to happen when your daughter shows up in an emergency room and has sepsis? Because they're not going to ask you who you voted for. They're not going to listen to you while you're screaming for them to help your daughter about how, oh, that's not what we meant. We met some imaginary woman that we don't know, who's irresponsible, who wants to end her pregnancy. That's who we meant. We didn't mean my daughter, whose now organs are shutting down. So why don't you give that a think while you're at church this Sunday, praying for the unborn? So if you can imagine what that mother was going through in Texas when she was begging them to help her daughter who had blood running down her legs and a fever, think about where you would want to be in that position. Only you can save your daughter right now by voting for Harris and Democrats all the way down the ballot.
Dude, I don't care how many views you're getting on a podcast talking to your MAGA parents. The minute my dad says, I don't care about anybody in California, including you, there is no more relationship. The relationship is over. I wouldn't let my worst enemy talk to me that way, much less my father. I wouldn't let a stranger on the street talk to me that way, much less my own parent. I'm very rarely one who is inclined to judge the legitimacy of somebody else's content, but in this circumstance, is it a really necessary conversation anymore, or is it just exploitative? And if it is exploitative, who's being exploited? It's not your parents. It's not your parents. Y'all are the ones losing. And I've never talked to these people. I've never had a conversation with them, but parasocially, I consider them friends in a way. I care about their well-being, and at this point I don't think it's healthy. I think y'all need to pivot.
All right, I'm here to respond to a lot of the questions from my last video in a longer form response. I have a lot of thoughts, and I feel like I have a lot of disclaimers that I just kind of want to get out of the way off the bat. First of all, I understand that I am a white woman on the internet talking about race, and I'm very cognizant of the fact that my voice is not the most important voice in this conversation. I think it seems valuable to receive this validation and to receive this information. I think that a lot of Black people were raised hearing about how racist some white families could be. But a lot of white people will fucking gaslight you and tell you that racism isn't real. And I'm here to tell you that, like, it's very real. I'm 30 years old. I was born in 1996 and I grew up like this, you know. My dad was Gen X and his parents were baby boomers, and they were wealthy white people who lived in a homogenous culture who never had to be exposed to black culture. I want to give a little context about why I was able to form my own opinions and views about things. So while my dad was super racist, my parents were divorced. Shout out to my mom. So I only spent half my time with my dad growing up until about 15, and then I lived full time with my mom. And I grew up in the Bay Area in California. I was born in Vallejo. I grew up in Fairfield. I went to statistically one of the most diverse school districts in the nation. Growing up, I did ballet for 10 years, and my dance teacher was a black woman who was probably one of the most like respected figures in my young life. This sounds so, I had black friends. I listened to black music, and when I was able to, I watched black shows. But it's funny because like at my mom's house, she didn't care what we watched, but she didn't really like us watching TV, period. Like she only gave us like an hour of TV a day, maybe, like on the weekends, you know? So like I couldn't really watch anything over there. And at my dad's house, I could only watch white shows. So it's like, have I watched That's So Raven? Yes. That's it. Like I loved some of these shows, but I just didn't have the opportunity to watch them. And I just want to say thank you so much for everyone putting all those suggestions in the comments about movies and shows to watch. But like that being said, like some of y'all recommended like Sinners, and I just want to say like I have been consuming black media since I was like 16, you know, consistently. So that's that. That being said though, like I have tried to do a lot of work in my life to be anti-racist. I have tried to educate, I tried to educate my dad about this, but I also want to acknowledge that like, I believe that all white people are a little bit racist. It is impossible as a white person in America not to benefit from systemic racism. And like, I understand that. Like, I also don't want there to be any impression that I'm coming on here and like, I have unlearned everything. I'm the least, like, no. I understand. I'm trying to understand, and I'm very open to like, if there's any offensive language that I use, let me know. If there's like, I don't want to come on here and further traumatize the black community. And I also don't want like to spread racist rhetoric that will land in the wrong place. So I just am like, I would almost rather have these conversations one-on-one because it's just like a little bit nerve-wracking to record yourself saying these things and putting it on the internet. My last video is at like 500,000 views right now. And like, that's a little fucking weird, but it's not about me. And I'm happy to provide validation and hopefully like maybe even some healing in the black community, because I understand that you've been gaslit by white people for so long who tell you that these things don't happen and that you're crazy for even thinking that racism is still a thing. Racism is absolutely still a thing. I know I'm not the only kid that was raised this way. And I hope that other people can recognize that you were raised being indoctrinated with racist ideas. It's crazy. I will also say, like, I am a liberal Democrat. I work for a Democratic political consulting firm based in the Bay Area, getting women, people of color, and LGBTQ folks elected into office. Like, I am doing the work. My brother, my flesh and blood brother, who was raised the exact same way as me, is full MAGA. Full MAGA. So, like, you can be raised the same way and just end up so different. So to answer one of the main questions on the last video, someone was like, mind you, her dad is still running around being racist. My dad passed away in 2022. He's no longer with us. A lot of you asked, what is my relationship like with my dad? We were not on speaking terms at the time of his death. We hadn't spoken, I want to say, in at least like 4 months, but I feel like it was closer to 6 months. And it was because of all this, you know, I tried to educate him, especially in 2020. There was such an opportunity there. That was when I became much more aware. And I think a lot of folks, white folks, became much more aware of like, not just like overt racism, but like the systemic racism, right? The for-profit prison system, the history of police and sheriffs in this country, and the necessity of protesting, and sometimes violent protesting. And I was like in defense of like looting. Like I was in defense of like looting Walmart, like companies that use slave labor, right? And so there was an opportunity there to teach him, and there was actually like one or two breakthroughs that happened, like presented with the right information from the right source. My dad was temporarily, like there was this glimmer of like, oh my God, he gets it. Like we were talking about the George Floyd protests and what they were really out there protesting, not what Fox News is talking about, not what all this other bullshit. This is what's really going on. And I got him to a point of like, dang, maybe I should get out there and protest with them. Like he said that one time. He never did go out there. And he, you know, as soon as we got off the phone, he watched Fox News again and was like, my crazy liberal daughter she doesn't know what she's talking about. So like, there is opportunity for breakthrough, but sustainable long-term breakthrough, like I have not seen that happen with someone who's like genuinely deeply brainwashed and like super racist and Trumpy. I lost my dad and brother like to Donald Trump. I lost them to him. When he became elected, there was no more nuance. There was no more opportunity for conversation. It was overt. The like kind of microaggressions and little things that like I had always like, you know, grown up with became overt, especially about Mexican immigrants, South American immigrants, especially about trans people. Like, it's so sad. And again, that's why I hesitate. Like, I need to figure out the language to talk about this on TikTok while being educational and adding to the conversation and not just like spreading trauma and hate. So that being said, I really appreciate the response to the last video. One of the other questions a lot of people asked was, did he watch sports? And I'm here to say no. That man hated, like he didn't hate sports, but he never watched sports. His dad, my grandfather, watched nothing but sports. I would love to further that conversation. I understand that like you're like, I'm circling the point there. I know it has like roots in slavery, and like, I think I know what you're getting at. And I would actually love if someone could maybe make a video responding to like, why are you asking if my racist dad really liked watching sports? I want to know the answer to that. I'm happy to answer more questions. But I think almost like if I can have direct questions to answer, that helps me, because it's also really hard to recall some of this stuff because it was normalized and because it's traumatizing. So I've blocked a lot of it out. But I'm really good with like more direct questions, and I'm happy to continue the conversation as long as you want to hear it. And as soon as you don't want to hear it anymore, I will shut the fuck up and go back to posting fucking my dog. Okay, thanks.
Okay, now that you've seen it, sit with that feeling for a second. What we just watched is not family drama. It is a moral reckoning. These are not spoiled children. These are people who grew up breathing anti-blackness at the dinner table and finally decided they would rather lose their parents than keep protecting racism. They are refusing the inheritance. They are cutting off the aunts. They are telling their own blood, "You do not get access to me while you vote for our harm." That is not abandonment. That is the highest form of love, choosing the safety of black people over the comfort of a racist relative. For generations, we were told to keep the family together at all costs. Keep smiling. Keep quiet. Don't make it political. And black people paid the price for that silence every single day. Now, a generation of white people is finally saying the quiet part out loud. Racism is not a difference of opinion. It is a choice. And they are choosing us instead. To every person who has already walked away from that table, thank you. You are living proof that black people have always been the moral compass of this country. We told the truth when it cost us everything. And now some of you are finally listening with your whole lives. To those still sitting there, making excuses, your children are watching. And more of them are choosing to leave rather than keep pretending. This is not the death of the American family. This is the birth of a better one built on justice instead of blood loyalty. One where love does not require silence while black people are harmed. The fever is breaking. The spell is lifting. And we are only getting started. I love you. Stay dangerous. Stay soft. Stay loud. I'll see you in the next one.